All right, Sparkle and Megan, sorry for the delay. Have fun.
Thank you, Tab. So we can start by taking a moment to appreciate this beautiful BlinkOn introductory slide here. Gotta love that. AI is awesome. Well, welcome. Hi, my name is Sparkle Meadows. I am from Google, and it is such a pleasure to be here with you all today, both those of you who are in person as well as those who are online. I work on the web platform with our team specifically in the UI capability space. You can think in navigations, interactions, rendering, all of those types of teams, as well as our teams on the media side of the house. So it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I am super excited that I have my lovely co-presenter today, Megan. So do you want to?
Hello, everybody. I'm Megan Perez, and I lead the web platform team at Microsoft Edge. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me and letting me help Keynote.
Awesome. Why don't we just dive right in?
All right, perfect. So as you all know, the web is the most used and wide and open platform in the world. And it brings together people from all over to learn, to collaborate, and to contribute across boundaries. And I think, for one, that we are all very, very privileged to be able to work and contribute to its progress. And so we're going to start today diving in to learn a little bit about the people that are contributing to this community. Alrighty. So Chromium is an implementation of the web that's very unique. It brings together people from all across the world and puts their efforts together with lots of different companies as well. There are 18 different countries represented here today at BlinkOn, whether it be in person or virtual attendees. And we welcome. Yes. Is that better? Okay. So there are 18 different countries represented here today between both virtual and in-person attendees, and we welcome everybody wherever you might be. So now turning to look at what everybody's been up to this year, we're going to start with contributions. And for those of you who like data like I do, looking at the new tooling around Chromium stats has kind of been fun to watch this year. So we did a manual count of the intent to messages to Blink Dev this year. There were 482 intent messages. 123 of these announced an intent to implement or prototype, 63 to experiment, a whopping 261 to ship. And important as well, 35 intended to deprecate or remove to keep the code base clean. And it's been a huge increase over last year, so thank you everybody for your contributions. Now, across all Chromium related repositories, of course, Google has a significant impact on the contributions to Chromium. Beyond the Google contributions, the companies that we are seeing, Microsoft, Igalia, Intel, Opera, and Samsung, have made the largest non-Google contributions by commit count. And if we look just at the Chromium-based, just at the Chromium repository itself, we see a similar pattern. But we can't ignore as well the large group of individual contributors that as a collective make up a large chunk of non-Google contributions. And so we thank everybody for all of those contributions. But today I get the honor to highlight a few of the contributions from these top contributing companies. Let me start with Microsoft, and for any of my teams that are here, I promise I value all the contributions and they're absolutely all my favorite. However, I can only highlight a few of these. And so, we're super excited about Edit Context. It allows web developers to be able to integrate their web apps with advanced input methods. And the developer tools team has added both functionality and performance improvements for those who are doing memory analysis at scale. Now, we've leveraged the help of our friends in Windows to identify and address inefficiencies in video encoding, in video hardware encoding with web codecs for Windows. And this one's the hardest one to say. I'm going to get it wrong. The many gamers who are choosing the web platform, web for game streaming, there's the gamepad haptic actuator interface that exposes the trigger rumble extension. So again, say that fast, but we're super excited about the integration of that so you can get your controller to rumble as you're playing your web-powered games. Next, Igalia. They've made a ton of investments, as always, into code health. The with syntax for import attributes has gone a long way to address code maintainability and better ergonomics for developers. And they've also contributed to the BlinkOn iOS prototype, which is helping us understand the viability of a Chromium-based browser on the iOS platform. Now, Intel has pursued access for developers to AI models with WebNN, and working with Google and Microsoft and others, making sure that interoperability in this space remains in the forefront as we have this brand new wave of investments. And they've also been pushing the envelope with allowing developers to have well-performing applications with complex workloads with compute pressure. Now, Opera has made multiple investments into SVG, including the addition of linear RGB for SVG gradients. And this helps with smoother and more accurate color transformations. And they've also invested in removing WebKit filters. This has gone a long way to help us remove the experimental syntax that has long been in the code base without breaking the web for these long adopted APIs. Samsung has delivered device-focused work, specifically on integration for immersive experiences with WebXR and OpenCL improvements targeting various types of processors. So there were plenty more from other companies, from other contributors. I want to take a moment to thank everybody for this work and for all the rest of it as well.
Thanks so much, Megan. So with that, I just want to take a really quick step back and recognize that the web is 35 years old this year, which is really, really crazy to think about. So I wanted to start with a few fun facts. One is that there are some other names considered before it was actually called the World Wide Web. One of these is the information mesh. That could have been a real fun one. Another one was the mine of information. But as we all know, ultimately we landed on the World Wide Web, which I personally think is a much more appropriate title. So this is the original logo. The World Wide Web goes by a number of different acronyms. We have www, we have W3, and then there's my personal favorite, the web, which I just like to think of as the original version. Now, there continue to be lots of changes to the web over the last 35 years in terms of improving capabilities, performance, interoperability, and not just in the last 35 years, but even since the last BlinkOn, there's been so much that has happened. Now, 2 years ago, one of the things that we talked about was really moving the web forward, and we've continued to do just that. So as Megan has said, we're not going to be able to talk about everything. There are some things that we're going to highlight today, and we're going to just kind of pick a few here and there, but just know that even if we don't talk about your specific team or a specific project that you worked on, we just can't cover everything in the limited time that we have today. But I want to go ahead and turn it back to Megan to kick off some of the work that we've done on Interop.
Yeah, so starting with a topic that is broader than Chromium, browser interoperability. We hear from developers everywhere that interoperability is one of their biggest pain points. They know that their users experience the web in multiple different browsers and multiple different web applications. And it's not surprising that the state of, they want to write HTML, CSS, JS, and have it run everywhere the same way. And we're seeing things like the state of HTML CSS report, the MDN developer needs assessment. Not surprisingly, these are some of their top feedback. And so by working to identify key areas for focus across browsers, the Browser Interop project has brought multiple browser vendors together to really ensure that the long-term health of the web remains open. So why does it matter? Here's a key example of a developer just trying to have the correct zoom level on an image on a website. Now, they really have very little control over how this comes up, depending on the experience that their user hits. So 2023 covered some high-profile areas like web codecs and pointer events. And 2024 is underway. It's got a slightly smaller set of capabilities and some that are very important. And I'm going to dig into a few of these in a second. The 2024 project has brought the Chromium-based browsers to a 99% compatibility rate at, with the current experimental WPT tests. But again, developers can really only count on that lowest common denominator. So that 90% score of what we're seeing today is, it is substantial. It has made a lot of progress over this year, but that's the level of where we're at today. So we're happy with the progress of what's come through. Now, let's zoom in on a few focus areas. CSS nesting is a good example of something that has added maintainability for developers. It's more readable, it's more manageable. You don't have to add it, you have to repeat selectors all over the place. Now, this is something that was added in 2023, but the focus of 2024 is that there were spec changes along the way, and we're driving towards making sure that there is consistent implementation with those changes. Next up, relative color. This syntax allows developers to take one main color and create an array of colors within their page based on just specifying differences from that main color. And in 2024, the current color keyword was added to make it simpler to find new keywords based on the current set color, which could come from an inherited rule. This allows you to do things like have the foreground and the background of text and allow that to have consistent contrast without having to hard code any values. And last up, request video frame callback. For video, this schedules a function that runs with the next video frame, similar to the request animation frame, but for video. It allows you to update other parts of the web page while the video is playing to understand and be able to maybe change things like other graphics that are rendering, sounds and things that align with that video. Now, the demo here, if it's playing, this shows the background changing based on the average of the colors that are in that video. So just a simple example of how this can play out and how this can be used. And the goal on this one is to get it implemented across all browsers. Currently, Firefox doesn't have this support, but through 2024, it is currently implemented and it will be enabled soon, moving that yellow to a green. Now, while Interop 24 brings a lot of great focus and interoperability across these browser engines, everything that's listed here are things that developers are asking us for that weren't included. So we know that the scope of the Interop project could be much larger. We're making sure that the transparency in the selection process, both for the scope and the items that are added, are continuing to be there so that, again, we can make sure that interoperability remains keeping the web healthy. The proposals for 2025 are open for a few more days. So in that downtime and those breaks, if you want to submit a proposal, it is open through October 9th. Please let us know what you're hearing from your developers, what those needs are, and help submit to the committee for the selection process. And then while Interop gives us a great project to understand and align across browsers, developers still need to know what works and what doesn't. And so last year we talked about the web platform dashboard. It is up and running, and we've gotten everything through the 2023 baseline added to the dashboard, and hope to, within the next, by the end of the year, have the rest of the web platform fully documented here. There's a talk, I believe, tomorrow morning, if you want to learn more about this dashboard. And now I'm going to hand it off back to Sparkle to talk more about the capabilities introduced across the platform in the last year.
Thanks, Megan. So Megan just shared a number of features that are actively part of Interop 2024, but there are a lot of other capabilities, UI capabilities in particular, that we've been working on over the last year. And as I said before, we don't have time to mention everything, but I did want to just give you all a sense of some of the work that's been in play. So we'll start with Select. Now, Select has been around forever, and it gives users a standardized way to view and select items. Now, the traditional implementation doesn't really allow for very much customization. The contexts of a select are limited to option tags. The select picker component is rendered in the browser UI, but it's not part of the DOM. It can't be styled with CSS. And ultimately, this means that it won't match the look or the feel of the page that is using the select element. And so the picker UI often kind of feels a little bit out of place. Now, to work around this, a lot of developers just create their own implementations. and it allows them to create experiences that feel more integrated with their actual websites. But that actually comes with its own kind of set of side effects. So a lot of times you end up in those situations, you have reduced performance, reliability, and reduced accessibility as well, if you're comparing it to what a native implementation would look like. So one of the ways we've kind of addressed this issue is by moving to a customizable select instead. And now this not only meets user expectations for a more modern and interactive experience, but it actually also reduces the script on the page, which improves both performance and accessibility. Now, you can imagine a select that can contain any valid HTML represented in a popover placed in the DOM. And this really lets developers express a full range of creativity in their select components and their style. So when you have a customizable select, really the possibilities for what you can do it's pretty endless. Now, as we continue to look forward to a more modern web, we want to focus on creating components that are stylable, accessible, and performant by default. We don't want to have to rely on JS or framework dependencies. So with that in mind, the next set of components that I want to talk about are actually related to building a carousel. Now, I know what you might be thinking. There are carousels all over the web, left and right. You've seen a ton. And yes, you are right. This is actually the case. But people build carousels in a lot of different ways. And a lot of the methods used to build carousels are not actually great for users that have varied needs. Those carousels don't always address edge cases. And honestly, they're not terribly easy to scale across the web. So we think that carousels should be performant. They should be accessible. They shouldn't take so long to build. And so the solution that's currently under development uses a series of standardized building blocks. So we have a set of primitives here. And with these 4 carousel primitives, you can actually put them together to create a more performant and accessible carousel. Now, continuing to give developers the ability to control and customize their features really ensures that users get the best experience possible. Scroll Snap is another feature that gives developers this control over the experience, and it's actually really useful when you pair it with Carousel. Now, all of these Scroll Snap 2 features are going to give developers new ways to continue to customize that Scroll Snap experience. And the one thing that I do want to call out here is that the Snap events that you see, these were actually shipped in M126. Now, ultimately, everything that we do is to create better experiences for our users. We want them to stay engaged with content on the web. We want them to be able to go to the web to achieve the goals that they have. And so one of the ways that we do this is we really have to give them the ability to navigate quickly. They need to feel like the web is modern, that it's intuitive. And gestures and navigations, it's one of the ways that users can really feel more connected to the content and understand how they're moving in between views on the web. So we started down this path of trying to make this experience more seamless by shipping view transitions. And at the time when we shipped view transitions in M111, it was specifically for single page apps, but it created a richer user experience. Since that time, we've actually launched cross-document view transitions. So you can think about this in terms of same origin. So you could go from chromium.org to chromium.org/events, but this is not cross origin, so you wouldn't be going from chromium.org to blog.chromium.org. So that's already launched. But looking forward, the next thing that we want to do is to think about gesture-based view transitions. So allowing users to use dragging and swipe gestures to actually trigger that cross-document view transition. And again, that would lead to a more native-like experience. Now, Airbnb is one of the companies who's actually already been experimenting with integrating view transitions into their UI. This is not the gesture-based view transitions, as you can see. But they've been trying it out to get that more smooth and seamless web navigation experience. In this case, we've gone from like a listing editor sidebar. We've been able to move into editing photos. You can add amenities. And all of this is happening within just one seamless fluid flow. So you can see the users just able to go back and forth between these states. So as you may have noticed, both developers and users came up a lot as we highlighted those few capabilities that we've been investing in. And for any experience that we create on the web, it's really important to think both about the developers who are creating these APIs and the users who are experiencing the websites that are built with them. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the developer side of things first. So the DevTools team in particular has been really focused on launching a number of improvements to just better support the developer experience on the web. Now, the one thing that I want to call out specifically is the WebDriver BiDi. And just to give you a quick refresher, WebDriver, this is a browser automation protocol. It's defined as a W3C standard, and it has implementations in Chrome Driver, Gecko Driver, and WebKit Driver. Now, Chromium has its own version, which is the Chrome DevTools Protocol, or CDP. Both WebDriver and CDP, they have their own sets of pros and cons, but with WebDriver BiDi, the goal is to create a new standard browser automation protocol that will actually bridge the gap between the WebDriver Classic and the CDP protocols. Another thing that the DevTools teams have been working on is providing more tooling support for a number of APIs that have been shipped. That's always exciting. We like having tooling to be able to figure out how to understand what's been going on with the different features. But the one that I want to call it in particular is the performance stats for CSS selectors, and that's the one that's highlighted here. This new setting will actually let you capture CSS selector statistics for long-running recalculate style events. So this will provide information on elapsed time, match attempts and count, and it will also give you a percentage, a percent of slow path non-matches for each selector. So just some great work that we're doing to really ensure that we're improving and thinking about the developer experience as well. So as I mentioned, we've got two sides here. So there's the developer side of the house, and now we're going to shift to the user experience side. So we always think about performance when it comes to user experience. It's a pretty big one. And this year we had the development of Speedometer 3.0, which has been a collaborative project with one primary goal, and that's building a shared understanding of performance on the web. Now, ultimately, all of the work that's been done here is really moving us closer to a representative benchmark that really reflects what users experience as they're navigating the ever-changing web. And ultimately, this is going to drive us to really focus on browser performance in ways that's going to create better experience for users at the end of the day. As we think about performance, it's always fun to call out one of the core web vitals, interaction to next paint. And one of the things about INP in particular is that it actually has some real world impact on business metrics. And we've had several case studies that have been able to demonstrate this in a super clear way. So one of these examples listed here is Trendyol. They had a 50% reduction in INP, and that actually led to a 1% uplift in click-through rate, which is pretty fabulous. Redbus also made improvements to their INP, and that led to an increase in sales by 7%. We even see this in the case of television. We have Disney Plus Hotstar. They actually reduced INP by 61%, and that led to an increase in weekly card views by 100%, which is pretty crazy. So I think the big takeaway here is that it's really clear that INP is directly related to the overall user experience, and it has real world implications. And so we want to continue to identify ways that we can make it easier for people to implement the APIs that are going to improve the user experience, which in this case is by improving INP. Now, along with interaction to next paint, we launched the Long Animation Frames API. Now, this allows sites to deeply understand which scripts are causing slow interactions and main thread congestion. Now, this has enabled third-party embedded scripts to make big improvements in their performance. We have recommendation provider Taboola. They used the Long Animations Frame API, and it improved their INP up to 36% for their publisher partner websites. We also have consent management providers that have been improving INP on their customer sites. There was a PubTech case study, which, first of all, just cool that we had a PubTech case study on this. But we had a PubTech case study that showed how it reduced INP on their customer sites by up to 64%. And this was through implementing yielding strategies. Now, we launched the scheduler.yield API in M129 to make this easier for developers. And so one of the things that we've seen is that Google Publisher Tag has also improved its yielding strategy, and that's resulted in some pretty big INP improvements across the sites that have used it. So the web is only as secure as we make it. As much as we want to build amazing things and we want to create incredible experiences for users to engage with, we have to constantly be aware of the fact that there are people who want to exploit what we've built. And with that in mind, V8 is by far our most exploited area of the Chrome code. It is absolutely where attackers go first when they want to harm Chrome users. And so the troublesome V8 code is actually being locked away in a new cage that we are calling the V8 sandbox. And we have a lovely little sandbox here. And this is it's a big project, but we are hoping that it will force attackers away from attacking V8. And when attackers are going to go and try to do something else, a lot of times they want to attack the GPU process. So one of the things that the teams have been working on is actually simplifying the attack surface by deprecating Swift shader and doing some other relayerings to mitigate that within the GPU stack. Now, this may come as a surprise to everyone, but no one is perfect. And we have a tendency to introduce bugs into C++. Now, these classes of bugs are called use after free and buffer overflow. So they're the two specific cases that I'll be talking about. And they're really easily exploited by malicious actors, and they use it to take control of Chrome or PCs or phones that are running Chrome. So there are two projects in particular, Miracle PTR and Spanification. They're both really large and ambitious projects, and the goal is to replace those troublesome parts of C++ with safer ways of making code. Now, Miracle PTR in particular is a 5-year project. It's been rolling out to more parts of Chrome and the platform over the last year or so. As I mentioned, there's this tendency with maybe not you, but maybe someone else that's sitting on your row, to often introduce bugs into C++. So we as a Chromium community are trying to move away from C++, but we're kind of lagging compared to some other platforms. So one of the things that we are actively doing is replacing the C++ PNG decoder with a Rust decoder. So that's the PNG Rust codec. I should say this is not obviously the actual one. So we've talked about security, but one of the best ways to keep our site safe is really to be mindful of code health. So I want to start just by pointing out how we've addressed tech debt over the last year. There have been 515 CLs that have landed, so kudos. That is awesome. We also have been really focused on product excellence. And I love the fact that we have fixed 2,500 P1 platform bugs. And overall, there have been 7,452 total platform bug fixes. That is a major investment in the health of the web. And it's simply incredible. You should give yourselves a round of applause. As you can see, maintaining the health of a massive platform like Chromium, it's about more than just the flashy things. You also have to really think about the common areas. It takes a lot of effort, and we have to continue to invest in it. So the platform will continue to thrive, but it happens when the investment is diverse and when it's driven by the varied community of embedders who actually benefit from Chromium. That's y'all. So we want to be intentional and sustain investment into the commons. And with that in mind, we're actually working on the Chromium Collective Initiative. Now, Shruti is going to be giving a talk a little bit later this afternoon, and so you should definitely go check that out so you can learn a little bit more about the work that's happening and how you can be involved. So finally, thank you. I want to start by just saying thank you to this year's amazing BlinkOn committee, especially Victor Padron, Lutz Fall, Penny McLaughlin, Johnny Stenbeck, and Mike Taylor. So thank you to you all for putting on BlinkOn. We know that a lot of work goes into making this happen, and so huge thanks to all of them. I also want to thank each and every one of you that's part of this community for your continued investment in Chromium. Thank you for your time, both those of you who are here in person today, as well as those of you who have taken the time to join us virtually. We know that we invest time in things that are important to us, and so the fact that you've taken the time not only to be present here today, but that you've taken the time, throughout the past year to invest into this platform, it just says a lot about how important this community is. So thank you all so much. Thank you for investing your time into both the community and the platform. So we hope you enjoy all of the sessions that are happening this week, and we look forward to continuing to grow the Chromium community. And with that,
I guess I just want to say one more thing. I want to thank Google for hosting us here. I think bringing this community together is tremendous. And on behalf of everybody else, thank you for having us.